Why do so many proud, self-assured Europeans come home from America and quietly admit their own countries feel like they're stuck in the past? Stick with us for the next few minutes, hit like and follow along, because this comparison is about to get uncomfortable for Europe. A quiet reckoning is spreading across the continent as millions of travelers land back in London, Berlin, and Paris and are forced to confront a hard truth. In the small, daily comforts of life, Europe is lagging behind by decades. They used to mock air conditioning as an unnecessary indulgence, and now they're forced to concede that America's central cooling systems are a stroke of engineering genius, capable of turning brutal outdoor heat into a crisp, artificial winter in seconds. Meanwhile, having to dig for coins just to use a public toilet back home now feels like a national embarrassment next to America's free, gleaming 10 out of 10 public restrooms. This isn't hearsay anymore. America has quietly built a standard of everyday living that even its harshest doubters are being forced to respect. So settle in, because we're about to break down exactly why the rest of the world keeps taking its hat off to American infrastructure. Do you really think that summer heat is only ever about the weather? Think again. For Europeans landing in the United States for the first time, it turned into something closer to an existential meltdown. Here's the raw, unfiltered version straight from someone who lived it. My European friends, I need you to actually hear me out on this one. Americans tried warning us. They kept saying, the heat over here is a different animal. You're going to want AC. You're going to want ice in every drink you order. And what did we do? We laughed at them. We said they were being over the top. We said, why on earth would every single building need to feel like a walk-in freezer? And now look at this. European football clubs, actual elite professional athletes, are having to cut training sessions short in the US because the heat is unbearable. And I'm sitting here scrolling through my feed thinking, these people weren't showing off about their air conditioning. They were handing us survival tips. And as an entire continent, we just went, nah, what do these guys know about their own weather? Turns out, they knew plenty. Go figure. Before they ever set foot in America, cocky British tourists love to say things like, if you need air conditioning, just crack a window and you'll be fine. That confidence lasted exactly until they met 35 degrees Celsius heat and Florida's suffocating humidity. 5 minutes outside, and their pride had melted clean off them. In Europe, air conditioning is treated like a rare luxury, something reserved for the privileged. In America, it's practically a public utility, an entire genius-level infrastructure system. The culture shock hits the second you walk from that outdoor furnace straight into a stadium or a movie theater. That first blast of cold air doesn't feel refreshing. It feels like a slap in the face, like you've just been teleported into a giant refrigerator. This heat is absolutely brutal, like 35 degrees. I've already taken every photo I need outside, and now I'm just hunting for shade. Honestly, just desperate to feel what it's like walking into that stadium and hitting that air conditioning. Oh, this is unreal. Genuinely incredible. It's like walking straight into a fridge. Living the dream. Honestly, I can physically feel my body temperature dropping. That's what dreams are made of. A perfectly manufactured winter afternoon, right in the middle of summer. And the consistency of it is almost unsettling. From city buses and gas station stores to bedrooms at night, that same crisp chill never wavers. For the first time in their lives, some of these European visitors experienced what it's like to sleep through a summer night without cracking every window open and swatting mosquitoes at 2 a.m. More Europeans die from heat-related illness every year than Americans die from gun violence. That's not just a claim. I actually checked. And the excuse that the buildings are too old and historic to retrofit with AC starts to sound pretty weak when actual lives are on the line. It's the same logic Europeans use when they say American lives are at risk because of lax gun laws. Personally, I love old architecture. I wouldn't want to touch it either. But I had no idea the number of heat-related deaths in Europe was that high. To really grasp how far behind the old continent has fallen, consider this uncomfortable fact. The number of Europeans who die from extreme heat each year is actually higher than the number of gun violence victims in the entire United States. And yet, while Americans treat air conditioning as a baseline survival requirement, plenty of European governments still frame it as some kind of environmental menace. People over there are more scared of a higher electricity bill than they are of dying from heat exhaustion. That stubborn mindset has even pushed elite European athletes to tap out during training camps in the US, unable to handle a room without central air. Here's another first-hand account. I genuinely never got why some Europeans just refuse to install air conditioning in their homes. I honestly figured it just wasn't that big of a deal. If it's hot, you get a C. End of story. That was until I crashed at my friend's place in Spain and finally understood why some Europeans won't budge on this. So I had a layover in Barcelona that I could extend, and my buddy who lives there offered to let me crash with him if I stretched the layover out. So I did. I get to his place and it's like 85 degrees outside. I walk in and realize it's also 85 degrees inside. So, after we catch up for a bit, I ask him, "Hey man, you got a C?" And he goes, "Nah, we don't really do that here. We don't need it. It doesn't get that hot." And I'm like, "Okay, dude, but this genuinely feels like an oven in here." And he goes, "In America, it's way hotter. We don't need it here. It's cooler." And I'm like, "No, maybe in some parts of the US, but from what I remember, it's actually way hotter here than back home." And he goes, No, I checked. I looked up Boston, New York, Philly. It's like 70 degrees. That's hotter." And I'm like, "Yeah, 70. That's actually way cooler." And he looks at me like I'm the idiot. Then it clicks. He probably thinks that's Celsius, not Fahrenheit. So I go, "That's Fahrenheit, not Celsius. It's actually way higher than 70 Celsius. And he goes, "No, I know. It's not that big a gap. 70 Fahrenheit is basically 65 Celsius. He's like, "This is exactly why you guys need the AC. It's just that much hotter." Mind you, this man has never once set foot in the US. I keep inviting him over, giving him every reason to visit, and he's like, "Nah, man, I can't come. It's way too hot." And I always figured that was just some lame excuse, and he secretly didn't want to come for some other reason. Turns out, no, he genuinely believes it's that hot here. He thinks the US is basically a Mad Max wasteland. I ran the actual math, and 65 Celsius converts to 149 Fahrenheit. So, either this guy thinks I live in some kind of hellscape, or he's just really bad at conversions. Either way, I'm pretty convinced that's exactly why he thinks Americans need air conditioning, and he doesn't. Are there other Europeans out there like this? Does anyone else genuinely think the US is some kind of Mad Max hellscape? The soft hum of an American HVAC system suddenly became the most desirable sound in the world to plenty of Europeans. Loads of British tourists came home and bitterly confessed, "I can't stand how stuffy my own house feels anymore." Some have even joked that America should write a line into its national anthem, honoring whoever invented the air conditioner. It really does show that the gap between advanced civilization and stubborn old-world conservatism can come down to something as small as pressing one button on a thermostat. So what's your take? Would you happily pay a bit more on your electric bill for a genuinely comfortable night's sleep like Americans get? Or would you rather stay loyal to your ancient World War II-era fan and pray the breeze saves your summer nights? Drop your answer in the comments below. But that icy chill was only the opening act of Europe's humiliation. Hold on to your wallets, because next we're walking into retail cathedrals so massive they'll set your entire worldview on fire. For a European, a grocery run means picking up 2 days' worth of food. For Americans, It's practically a pilgrimage into a temple of extreme consumerism. If you think the supermarket chains in Paris or London already feel huge, wait until you step inside a Walmart. This isn't a store, it's a lawless territory where every normal rule gets thrown out the window. Europeans have literally stood in shock at seeing a full tattoo parlor operating inside a shopping mall. And then came the prices, which felt almost offensively cheap. A massive 75-inch flat-screen TV running just $398, an unthinkable number back on a continent where taxes and fees crush any hope of affordable electronics. But that wasn't even the peak of the shock. Step into Costco, and Europeans go through something closer to a spiritual awakening. Everything in there is oversized. Jars of mayonnaise the size of a newborn, bags of sugar as heavy as sacks of rice, blocks of cheese weighing 2 full kilograms. Even stranger, in a single trip you can grab diapers, milk, a new set of tires, get your eyes tested, and casually walk out with a rifle. That one-stop shop lifestyle is a luxury that Europe's cramped, tightly zoned cities simply can't replicate. Normally composed, refined European guests transform into gleefully greedy shoppers the moment they hit the free sample stations at Costco, circling them like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. The price gap lands another blow to their self-esteem too. A Puma shirt runs about $13 at Costco in the US, while the exact same shirt costs triple that in the UK or Germany. And if European highway rest stops are basically sad little counters selling dry bread, then America's gas station plazas are a genuine marvel, complete with giant ice machines, hundreds of pumps running around the clock, and shockingly good hot brisket. While European cities shut every store down after 8 p.m. and go completely dark on Sundays, American retail giants stay lit all night to satisfy whatever craving you happen to have at 3 a.m. So what's your honest take on this extreme consumer lifestyle? If your partner says they're just running to the store and accidentally wanders into a Walmart, will they even find their way back out within 3 days? And is anyone here brave enough to finish a 2-kilogram block of cheese solo in a single week? Let us know down below. But after surviving that avalanche of cheese and barbecue, it's time for our next stop, the restroom. And yes, even this is enough to make all of Europe blush. For a European, using a public bathroom back home basically feels like a small financial transaction. But once they land in the US, this oddly sensitive subject becomes one of the most fiercely debated cultural topics out there. The first genuine shock hits when tourists look down and see the water level in American toilets. Plenty of Brits and Italians have stared in horror, wondering why the water is rising up so close to them, terrified of some imaginary backflow disaster. In reality, though, it's a deliberate design choice. That higher water level means American toilets almost never end up with stubborn stains. Now compare that to their biggest rival, Germany's infamous shelf-style toilets. Sure, that design offers privacy like a fortress, but it's a nightmare for smell and hygiene, with waste sitting exposed before it ever gets flushed away. But the real blow to old continent pride comes down to one simple word: free. In most major European cities, using a public restroom means fishing around for loose coins just to get through a cold turnstile. In America, free public restrooms are everywhere. Honestly, easier to stumble on than a friendly smile in Paris. Even at bars or roadside rest areas, British tourists have handed out perfect 10 out of 10 cleanliness ratings, a score that would be laughably generous for public facilities back home. Still, Europeans always manage to find something to complain about, namely, the wide gaps around American stall doors. Plenty of British tourists have gotten so anxious about it that they've stuffed toilet paper into the gaps themselves just to avoid being seen. Europeans love to mock America for skipping bidets and sticking with paper, while Americans fire back that European toilets can't even flush away a napkin without struggling. Truth is, American flush pressure is so strong that people joke it could wash away all your problems in a single go. No second flush required. So which side of this bathroom battle are you on? Would you rather have total privacy but questionable hygiene in Europe, or accept a few uncomfortable gaps in exchange for spotless, free American restrooms? And has anyone here ever been startled by that rising water level? Tell us in the comments. Now that we've left the restrooms squeaky clean, it's time to head back outside and face the real giants waiting for us on the street. If a Range Rover felt like the ultimate status symbol back in London, the second it lands in America, it suddenly looks like a toy car. America isn't just about wide-open roads. It's got an entire culture built around raw muscle dominating every avenue. Stand next to a Ford F350 and you'll feel it, physically dominant. Over 3 feet longer in wheelbase than a Range Rover, and towering well above the average adult's head. Irish tourists seeing these trucks for the first time were stunned to realize the tires were as wide as an adult's hip, with door handles sitting at eye level. In England or Italy, roads are so tight that 2 oncoming cars practically have to negotiate who moves first. In America, wide, sprawling lanes open up an entirely different world, where speed limits sometimes feel more like polite suggestions, and highways function like actual racetracks. And these trucks aren't some clunky, bare-bones machines either. They come with heated seats, panoramic sunroofs, even automatic side steps that drop down so you can climb in comfortably. Plenty of Brits, watching all this unfold, could only sigh nervously, half joking that if one of these things ever drove through London, it would flatten a few Mini Coopers along the way. But Europe's humiliation didn't stop at the roar of a 6.7-litre diesel engine. America is barreling straight into the future, with self-driving robotaxis quietly gliding through city streets at night. British tourists could only gasp watching these vehicles confidently stop at red lights, dodge pedestrians, and reverse smoothly with zero human input. Even a Walmart parking lot turns into the biggest free showcase of trucks and cutting-edge tech on the planet. Would you want to sit behind the wheel of one of these beasts that used to look down on every European luxury car? And with a ride height like that, would your partner need a literal rope ladder just to climb in? Let us know. But these massive machines burn through fuel just as fast as your stomach empties out after a long day of sightseeing. Get ready, because our next stop completely redefines what a lot of food even means. Here's an uncomfortable truth. The entire concept of a medium size seems to have been wiped off America's culinary map entirely. A medium cup of water at any fast food spot in Texas could easily rival what counts as an extra large back in the UK. And to really understand the scale of American consumption, look at one number that speaks for itself. On July 4th alone, Americans eat roughly 150 million hot dogs. Lined up end to end, that's enough sausage to wrap around the entire planet several times over. This kind of culinary liberalism is something Europeans simultaneously fear and secretly crave. They walk into restaurants and discover the refill culture. Unlimited free soda refills, a small privilege that instantly turns grown European adults into giddy kids at an amusement park. They get introduced to ranch dressing, that golden, borderline sacred sauce Americans will drizzle over absolutely anything, from pizza to fries to grilled wings. That same generosity shows up in the way fries get dumped straight onto the table, or in the sheer thickness of a Cheesecake Factory menu, which honestly looks more like a bound scripture than a food menu. Even Canadians, who are already used to generous portions, have to admit their burgers back home look like toys compared to the mountains of meat served in America. A single lunch in Houston can easily cover both your dinner and your breakfast the next morning. This sheer volume quietly rewires the taste buds of tourists altogether. When they get back home, European dishes suddenly start to look like meals designed for someone recovering from malnourishment, while the local food tastes strangely flat and underseasoned. That's exactly why so many travelers sneak a few bottles of ranch dressing into their checked luggage, treating it like treasure smuggled back from another world. In a culture where competitive eating is basically mainstream televised sport, America has built its own entirely separate definition of a satisfying meal. So what's your call? A hearty meal that fuels you for 3 straight days, or an elegant French-style plate that leaves you raiding the fridge at 2 a.m.? Do you honestly think you could take down a full-sized American burger solo? With our stomachs stuffed and our legs exhausted, it's finally time to head home. Just a warning though, America's definition of home is about to deliver another gut punch to European self-esteem. If you think a cozy little apartment in Rome or Paris is peak romantic living, stepping into an American home is going to pour cold water all over that fantasy fast. In the United States, living space runs on exactly one principle: bigger. Walking into an American kitchen, Europeans are often left completely speechless by an oven so massive, people joke it could roast an entire adult ostrich. Right beside it sits an XXL refrigerator, roughly the size of an entire cramped studio apartment in London. But the real jaw-dropper is the garbage disposal unit tucked under the kitchen sink. One push of a button, and all your leftover scraps vanish instantly, completely wiping out the lingering food smell problem that Japan and Britain still deal with daily. That overwhelmed feeling only builds as you step into the walk-in closet, roughly the size of an entire European bedroom, big enough that you could genuinely get turned around among the racks. The whole house stays at a perfectly balanced temperature year-round, thanks to a central heating and cooling system, a stark contrast to the room-by-room, energy-saving heaters of the old continent. Even the American garage isn't just a place to park a car, it doubles as a full workshop, a massive storage unit, or even the birthplace of the next billion-dollar startup. All of this comes down to sheer geography. A single state like Texas could physically swallow up 7 European countries combined. European travelers frequently hit a genuine distant shock moment, realizing they've driven 7 straight hours through Florida and still haven't crossed the state line. In fact, the US National Park System alone covers roughly 133,000 square miles, an area larger than the entire United Kingdom. So, if you had to choose, would you rather live in a tight, historic Roman apartment or a sprawling suburban home, complete with an ostrich-sized oven and a massive garage? Are you worried you'd genuinely get lost in your own closet? Drop a comment. But no matter how modern or massive the infrastructure gets, none of it compares to another distinctly American feature: the sheer warmth of the people themselves. Plenty of people go in assuming American friendliness is just a hollow social performance. But European visitors who've actually experienced it will tell you Americans genuinely seem to care. It's a full-blown culture of waving hello. Sit on a porch in Pennsylvania for 5 minutes, and total strangers walking by will wave at you like you've known each other for years. Pull up to a Starbucks drive-thru, and the staff will wish you a good day with so much genuine warmth you'd think you'd been friends since childhood. Walk down a sunny sidewalk, and a total stranger might casually stop just to ask, "Hey, it's brutal out here. Have you had enough water today?" The absolute peak of this openness is backyard barbecue culture. No invitation required. Walk past an American backyard cookout and even just glance at it with interest, and they'll wave you over, hand you a plate piled with meat, and crack open a cold beer for you. They'll patiently give you directions, walk you through it step by step, all with a kind of humble hospitality that catches people off guard. The media loves to paint Americans as loud or rude, but in reality, they're some of the warmest people you'll ever come across. America might genuinely be the strangest place on earth in that sense. No matter where you're from, you can slot into a community there almost instantly. Their tolerance runs so deep that even showing up in a rival team's jersey won't stop someone from happily handing you a hot dog. That single spirit of generosity completely rewired the assumptions of over 100,000 European tourists after just one summer at a major sporting event there. America didn't just humiliate Europe with better air conditioning or bigger supermarkets, it genuinely won the continent over through the openness and generosity of its own people. So after everything we've covered, what actually means more to you? A perfectly cooled room or a warm smile from a total stranger on an American street? Has a stranger in America ever gone out of their way to help you? Share your story in the comments. After all these lopsided comparisons, from the icy blast of central air conditioning to the retail cathedrals that test every wallet's limits, to the jaw-dropping generosity in portion sizes and living space, one obvious truth emerges. America isn't deliberately trying to humiliate Europe. It's simply running a system built around maximizing everyday human comfort. Europe can absolutely take pride in its centuries-old streets and its slower, more refined rhythm of life. But once you're living day to day, America's practicality and sheer scale have built a standard of comfort that's genuinely hard to walk away from, no matter how traditional you consider yourself. Are we mistaking a respect for tradition for simply falling behind on quality of life, caught somewhere between Europe's romantic, nostalgic charm on one side and America's modern comfort and convenience on the other? If you had to pick one place to actually live and build a life long-term, where would real paradise be for you? If you found today's breakdown interesting or thought-provoking, hit like so we know to keep making content like this. Drop a comment sharing your own take on the differences between the US and Europe. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next cultural and infrastructure deep dive. Please note that everything in this video is based on a mix of personal experiences, informal travel accounts, and general cultural discussion, meant purely for reference, entertainment, and to spark some genuine debate. We have no intention of attacking, mocking, or belittling any country, system, or individual. Every real-life experience varies depending on region, timing, and personal circumstances, so we'd encourage you to look into things independently rather than take any of this as absolute fact.